Will Van Roosenbeek has served as the director of the Pride Center for the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse for the past 22 years. He has taught both Introduction to LGBTQ plus studies and Understanding Human Differences at UWL. Prior to working at UWL, Will served as a community services specialist for Couleecap, where he coordinated and facilitated youth programs, including One by One, the Community Youth Initiative, MLK Day Teach-In for middle school youth, and the Martin Luther King Project. He has been a board member of the Rivers LGBTQ plus Connection and started Trans Forum, a support group for adults who identify as transgender and non-binary. He also volunteers on the selection committee for Habitat for Humanity's home ownership program. They currently live in La Crosse with their partner Tara and their dog Ruby. Across the years, Will and Tara have served our fellowship in a number of ways. We asked Will to speak to us today to reflect on their journey that led up to being selected for the 2024 MLK Leadership Award. Will, we welcome you.
Hello, hello. Okay, I just needed more time. Sorry about my computer, but I have my thoughts on here and don't have a printer at home, so. Well, good morning. First, I just want to thank you for inviting me today to share some of my experiences with and about Dr. Martin Luther King and nonviolence and the civil rights movement, and getting the chance to spend time with a lot of amazing people earlier in my life. And of course, getting to this place has been definitely a journey. And it started when I was a student at UWL. We had some Jay Scott, who now is returned back to this community to live. He was working in our student union, and he was, I think, a fellow of the King Center. He had gone down there and gotten lots of training from the King Center, and wanted to bring that to students at UWL. And along with the Roncalli Newman Center, and it was Guy Wolf that was the campus minister at the time. Some of you might know Guy. The two of them decided to do an alternative spring break trip and take students to Atlanta. And so Tara and I both went. We were very excited. I wasn't sure I was qualified because I was doing my internship at the time. Still a full student and paying. So, but I got permission to be gone for that week so that I could travel with the students. And really had no idea what I was getting myself into or what this was going to be like. But we traveled to Atlanta, and we had the opportunity to see the King Center. We went into the King Center. We were doing trainings. And if some of you might know Jay and Guy, sometimes they don't always have all the information before we jump into something. And so, excuse me, sorry. One night, there was a celebration happening, and they were like, we're going to the celebration. So, you know, if you have any nice clothes, you should wear them. Well, nobody told us to bring nice clothes, so we didn't have any, and they're like, well, that's fine, we're going anyhow. And I don't remember where the event was, but it was a gala event where everyone was dressed very nice except for us. But we got a chance to meet Coretta Scott King. She was there, and she knew Jay, and it was an amazing, I mean, it was only like minutes, but it was really amazing after we all got over feeling like they had let just anybody in. Here we all are looking pretty ratty. But it was an incredible experience. You know, I've had the opportunity to take students. So the MLK project kind of was at the county for a long time. And then when the county no longer wanted to kind of run it, then it came to Couleecap. And unfortunately, Couleecap is totally grant funded. And when you can't find grants to fund programs that are successful, you have to create new programs Or I think the organization eventually decided youth programs was not something that they could sustain in La Crosse, which is around the time that most of the youth programs in the area kind of closed down. We had one at Gunderson. There was one at the Red Cross, at the AIDS Resource Center of Wisconsin, and all of those kind of closed right around the same time, which is really unfortunate. But one of the things that I got to do when we were in charge of the MLK project was taking students on civil rights trips. And so we were taking young people from La Crosse, but also connecting with one of the private schools in Milwaukee that was geared towards African-American young people. It's called Mesmer High School. And together we would go on these freedom rides. And oftentimes I was traveling with Guy Wolf again, and Dr. Reese, who also worked at UWL. And both of them were fly by the seat of your pants people. And I am to a point, but not like the two of them. So there was a lot of anxiety working with them, but they're those kind of people that everything always works out for them. They have no plans, and I'm not that fortunate. I feel like when I don't have plans, it doesn't usually work that way. But fortunately for both of them, Guy would always be like, all right, whatever. And Dr. Reese would go and pray somewhere, and we would be like, where is he? And he's praying for us. Okay. Well, I hope his prayers are answered. But we would take young people, and it was kind of scary because, we didn't really know the Milwaukee kids at all. And the UWL had a program that they brought the Milwaukee kids here in the summers and took them on the river and stuff. So they were a little bit more familiar with Mesmer High School, but not necessarily with the students that we had. The opportunity was not only to see history, but to kind of understand it more and learn it from people who actually were, taking part in the civil rights movement, who were still alive, who were around, and, hearing from them their courage, their truth, and the struggle that they were involved in, which I think for me personally kind of helped me to be more brave in my actions towards nonviolent social change, and maybe thinking a little bit more about what I can do as one person. And another person that we traveled a lot with was Sarah Coleman, who was a teacher at Central. She is a UWL grad. Her and her husband, Bill Coleman. Bill was a art teacher at one of the middle schools. And if you ever knew Bill, he was this very tall, big dude who, if you didn't know him, you would be scared to death. But then you heard, oh, he's an art teacher. And you're like, what? But a very sweet person. He has since passed away. But Sarah and I would travel together, and we were kind of, it was wonderful that I had her, because we could say, like, what are we doing? And we would both be just like, okay, we'll just let those two take care of it. And it was because of those opportunities with those people that I feel like I've embraced this work and had the opportunities to stand up for things that I don't think previously I would have been able to do. And I also had an opportunity, and I was actually talking to somebody recently, and we talked about maybe we should do this again. At one point, there was a community freedom ride where we took people who were involved in the county and the city, and there were folks from the government, and there were people from higher education and the schools, the nonprofits, the hospitals, and I had an opportunity to go on that, and that was also very incredible because instead of taking kids, here were all these adults, some who kind of knew about the civil rights, others who didn't, but it was an opportunity. I think we might have gone to several of the cities and met with different survivors of the civil rights movement and heard their stories. And I know for me, it was another opportunity to learn and see history kind of in action. I don't think the schools are much different now, but there are only certain things that we teach in the schools related to the civil rights movements. It's almost always around Dr. King's the Martin Luther King Day, or during February, which is Black History Month, but it's not something that you learn in great detail. And so some of the cities that we would go to, one is Selma, which is a very small city. I think it's a very poor city still. And in Selma, we met this woman, Miss Joanne Bland, who was a very tall woman, loud, and I would call her a Marine sergeant / mom. And she was not, she would not take any shit from the students. If a student was she ran the Voting Rights Museum, which I haven't been down there in a long time, so I think it's kind of been redone and is better. It was like the basic museum that you would ever see. They had, everything was very basic, plain, and not a lot, but she told stories of what it was like to fight for your right to vote. And if the students were like leaning against a wall or something, she would say, "Boo, get off my wall." And then she would say, I and other people have, fought a lot of things for you to even be here. So like stand up straight and listen. And pretty much after that happened once, most of the students were afraid that she would call them out and did not want to be embarrassed. And then she would take us sometimes on a tour of the city. She'd get on our bus and drive around, and she'd say, "This is where the guys of the Klan would meet. Here's where this owner of this business was a member of the KKK and was a really bad dude and never was punished for any of his what he did." And she really, I think, wanted to make it understandable for our students how hard it was and what it was like living in a town where you were afraid all the time. And she shared with us her story of Bloody Sunday. Basically, her mom told her older sister, "Do not go." And so her older sister went and brought Joanne with her, who was little. And of course, it was very exciting, all the people on the bridge, until, the police started coming for them. And she was almost trampled by a police horse on the bridge. And she remembers that distinctively, the fear she had. And of course, I'm sure her mom whooped her sister's butt for bringing her to such a thing. But I think it was for her another reason why she kind of devoted her life to the Voting Rights Museum and the community and all of that. She would also open this little grocery store. I don't know if this grocery store was ever open unless there were people in town coming to visit. But it was a blind man that lived in the community, and he ran the store. And basically it was filled with pop, candy, chips, and like ice cream. So I felt like there was a reason it would open for the people who were visiting. And she would, we would take a walking tour, and then she would stop there and say, "Okay, get out your money and go in the store." And of course, high school students, they dropped a lot of change there. And they were shocked that this blind man could run the store. And it was just very interesting. And I felt like our time with her was really precious. And I know she came here to speak a few years ago. But she definitely was a mover and a person who never left her little community, stayed there to continue to educate and really put Selma on the map for people to come visit. If you didn't have that museum and somebody to get on the bridge with you and to talk about what happened, I think people maybe wouldn't think too much to go to Selma. There's not much else to do in Selma. And of course, a lot of times everybody gets that opportunity then to walk across the bridge, which we did, which was, I think, pretty amazing. We would also go and visit Birmingham and definitely stop at the 6th Street Baptist Church, where sometimes we would have speakers come and talk to us about the 4 little girls who were murdered when the bomb went off in 1963. And those girls were Addie Mae Collins, Carol Robertson, Cynthia Wesley, and Denise McNair. And they were just 4 kids who were in the choir who were getting ready that morning to sing and had no idea what was going to happen. And when you met and listened to people who were there, and how scary that was, but also met folks who were part of that children's campaign. This was an opportunity, the adults during the civil rights movement, many of them, they all had jobs, couldn't always, be out there protesting. And at this point, some of the children decided that they were going to leave school this one day and march. And that is what we remember as where the police dogs were attacking them. They had the fire hoses on them. And I think this is one of the first times that the TV actually was positive, because this is one of the first times people actually saw Black people being attacked in this way. I mean, I think people had heard about this, but maybe had not seen this. And to see these children being sprayed with a fire hose, the attack dogs, I just remember this one where the dog's got the biggest teeth and it's coming at this kid. And to see that on the nightly news, I think really changed for many people what they were thinking about regarding the civil rights movement. And so I think that was something that was good that happened. They do have a little area in Birmingham that kind of shows you where those attacks took place. So you can kind of walk around there. And then they also have the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. So if you do a pilgrimage, there are places to see at all of these stops that have been beautifully done, many of them, and I think the one in Birmingham in particular, there's a lot of interactive things within the museum. But one of the things we always did when we went to Birmingham is we would eat at the Lavasse, which is a fine soul food Southern cooking restaurant. There's back then there was a couple that ran the restaurant. I don't know if it's even still there. They cook candied yams and fried chicken and have macaroni and cheese and greens. And this was the first time we would introduce some of the kids to soul food and what people ate. And they would come and they would talk to us about food and how important food was during the civil rights movement. Like, they needed restaurants like the Lavasse to be places where people could come afterwards and be nourished. I think Dr. King went to many of these places. I think food and drink were a part of the process. And Birmingham's a very, I think, beautiful place to go. One of the other places that we would visit would be Montgomery. And this is where the bus boycotts took place. Really, what we would do is we would stop at the Southern Poverty Law Center. They are a catalyst for racial justice in the South and beyond. They work in partnership with communities to dismantle white supremacy, strengthen intersectional movements, and advance the human rights of all people. One of the lawyers, civil rights lawyers, Morris Dees, has come to La Crosse many years ago. He also works with Joseph Levine, and they founded the Southern Poverty Law Center in 1971 with the promise of the civil rights movement becoming a reality for all. And one of the things that they do and have continued to do is to go back to some of those cases where some of the KKK were tried but never found guilty, and actually find some of those people guilty and have them get their punishment, which is no easy task, because oftentimes a lot of the evidence was hidden or gotten rid of, and but they've been able to do that, and I think that's a wonderful thing. The other thing that they do is they have a program called Hate Watch. And so they watch all of the hate groups that are out there. You can go on their website, and you can, wherever you're going to visit, or if you're going to move, you can go there and look to see what hate groups are currently in that area. And of course, there's always hate groups somewhere. We have, a number of them in Wisconsin as well. A new one that I just heard about is the Blood Tribe. Yes, who recently, it was either this week or last week, but it must have been this week. Sorry, it's the first week of school, and it felt like 2 weeks long, but it's just been one. But they were at Whitewater recently and yelling and screaming at folks. They consider themselves a hard white supremacist group versus like the Proud Boys that they say are wimpy. They believe that their leader is someone who was a military person and then left the military to become a tattoo artist and then to become a leader of this hate group. They believe that Hitler is a god, and they also believe in a Norse god that I guess this leader thinks he is that person or something. But their whole thing is that blood needs to happen. And I don't know what that means. When I've read some of their stuff, they haven't done anything violently to do anything about the blood, but they're all about the blood. And they've come actually to Wisconsin, or they might be in Wisconsin. They came to Madison this summer, which I hadn't heard anything about this, but they were marching in Madison. They also went to Green Bay when Green Bay was having a drag show. Again, I hadn't heard anything about that. And then they were at Whitewater, and they are against LGBT folks. That's one of their groups that they don't like. So I really appreciate the work the Southern Poverty Law Center does, that you can track the hate groups and learn about them, which is not very fun to learn about, but is kind of necessary to be, aware that these folks exist. And they also do great things for education. They have a whole program that focuses on how you can teach the civil rights movement and nonviolence and all topics of diversity. They actually have things that you can just download. They have teachers that are involved, and so teachers are posting some of the stuff that they're doing on all these different topics. You can look it up based on what age you're teaching. They have videos that are free that they give to schools and educators, and they're just a great organization. I really encourage. They have a beautiful fountain outside that kind of focuses on the different things that happen in the civil rights movement. Because they do what they do, you can't go in their building unless you have a clearance in a certain amount of time, which we did not do. And that the whole city is got cameras all over because they get a lot of bomb threats, and Morris Dees in particular and Joseph Levine get a lot of death threats. So people would definitely want that organization to go away, but they're a very strong organization. Some of the times we got to meet with people that I think Jay Scott and other folks maybe had met. And one person that we got to meet with was Dr. Bernard Lafayette, and he's actually been here too to do some trainings. I think Thomas brought him a number of times. And he was a member of Dr. King's inner circle. He was young at the time, and he was one of the original Freedom Riders. He was one of the people injured on the march on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. And he joined us several years at different times to kind of help educate the youth about Dr. King, about the civil rights movement, but really to focus on how nonviolent social change can be a way to deal with anything, and to encourage young people to think about that. And I felt like seeing the youth hear from him, and we did a lot of activities where they were taking what they learned and kind of turning into how they could maybe use it in their community. Seeing them talk about that was very amazing, and hoping that they would be able to really utilize some of this in their lives, I think was a really cool thing. We did take students to Memphis one year, and we met with Arun Gandhi, who's the grandson of Mahatma Gandhi. And he and his wife started a civil rights or a nonviolent kind of piece to the college that he was working with. And this was another opportunity for young people to hear from somebody who, learned from their grandfather and their father, and was able to pass that along to the students in a way that students could take that back with them as well. And they also have the National Civil Rights Museum, which was mentioned, and the Lorraine Motel. And one of the things that I remember distinctly about that, at the time, there was a woman that was living across the street, on the street from the Lorraine Motel. And I don't know how many years she lived there, I think for quite a while. Her name was Jacqueline Smith. And she was out there protesting. She loved what happened with the museum and all of that, but she was protesting because she used to work at the motel for $10 a day and also lived there for 11 years. At some point, it was a low-income place where folks could live. And so she was protesting the removal of that housing and taking away some people's jobs. And so we would go and we would go out over and talk to her, and she would love to have her pictures taken and all of that, but would hand out stuff and tell us what she was up to and why she was doing that, which made a lot of sense. And I hope I don't know where she is today, but hopefully that was a good part of her life, being able to do that education. And the last year that we took youth, we went to Washington, D.C., and we went to see and hear the Dalai Lama speak on the mall, which was incredible. It was the July 4th weekend as well. There was also a big pot festival happening on the mall, which made me very nervous of where would the students be, listening to the Dalai Lama or at Pot Fest. And I don't know where they all went, because it was crazy busy. The bus took us in the morning, and then couldn't come in at night because it was the 4th, and so we had to get on the bus, or we had to get on the metro thing to get back. And we had groups that you had to stay in your group, and hopefully you all get on. But after the 4th of July fireworks, the metros just, and we didn't lose anybody, which makes me very happy. But again, we had opportunities to go to some of the museums. We took the students to the Holocaust Museum and other historical places. And, I know for sure that Holocaust Museum is always, anytime I've been in there, it has impacted me, and I know it impacted other students. So not only learning about, the civil rights movement, but also other ways that people have been killed and hurt because of who they are. And I know that Sarah Coleman and I always worried. So when we would go to these places, we would stay at hotels, and basically one adult would have to stay up, or two, all night long, and sit in the hallway to watch to make sure that none of these young people were escaping. And sometimes the hotels would have security, and we could actually pay them to kind of do that, although it's kind of risky turning that over to someone you don't know. And one night I don't know which one of us was in the hallway, spending the night sitting out there. But one of the security guards said, "Your kids are trying to get from one balcony to the other." And of course, we knocked, and they're like, "What? We're fine." And the one guy that had already snuck over was behind like one of the curtains, to hide. But so that was always a fear of Sarah and I's, that we were always fearful that there might be a civil rights to our baby. And a couple times there were people that got pregnant, but it was not during our civil rights experience, which we always were worried about that. As when you go on a bus trip for a week, of course you're going to find the love of your life, and you got to do what you got to do when you have the time. But I just wanted to share with you, I have two quotes from Dr. King that I think are important to myself. And the first one is the time is always right to do what is right. And those were the words that he spoke at Oberlin College in Ohio in 1964, encouraging the college students to continue to use nonviolent social change to deal with the racism and inequality that was happening. And many times in my life, I found myself really angry and frustrated with myself, with our community, with the state, with the country, the world. And now is kind of one of those times, feeling frustrated. And it's at those times that I kind of get to the point of thinking, that maybe violence is the answer, or that really there's nothing more that I can do. And so this quote kind of reminds me that regardless of if I think I can do something big, I can always do something small, and that small thing that I do that is good is equally as important, and is better for me to think about that. The other one is the quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere," which comes from Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. And this for me has been a call to action to especially when I'm feeling like defeated or hopeless. Again, now is kind of feel some of that a little bit. And I remind myself that, what impacts one impacts all, and that I'm a part of that. And so, I can sit and do nothing, or I can, take action. And fortunately, that has really helped me kind of remind myself what I need to do, like that I must stand up, that I must, volunteer, that I must donate or write letters or vote or, talk to other people. Unfortunately, I have students that I work with, and oftentimes, I can speak to them about some of the issues that they're totally unaware of. And I know I can't change the entire world, but I'm determined that, I want to make a difference in my neighborhood and my place of employment and the community. And I'll close with some words that were actually posted on Bernice's webpage, Bernice King's webpage. And it's the quote is, "Kindness matters, but kindness does not equal justice. Civility counts, but calling for civility is not the human response to injustice. The humane response to injustice. Justice is. Love is essential, but love is not a passive, weeping bystander. Love puts in the work." And I think that's the thing that I probably have learned the most is even when I don't want to do the work, or I'm scared to do the work, or I know the work's going to be uncomfortable, or maybe I won't be liked because I'm doing the work, that is what I can do, is to continue to do the work. And my experiences, I think if I wouldn't have had them, I wouldn't have this kind of belief. So thank you for letting me be here today and speaking to you. And I would love to answer any questions or whatnot.